I did bad. There's no way that God was able to use that because it was bad. But I think that totally blew my mind to realize that God can actually use whatever we give him. It doesn't have to be perfect. I think I was boxing God and saying that he was limited to my best efforts, which is just totally wrong. I want to share my journey with being okay with not being perfect. I think the thing that drives me most is knowing that I'm doing my best, which is definitely both a positive thing and a negative thing, depending on what the scenario is. I always like to make sure that I'm living up to expectation, whether that's someone else's or my own, and then being able to achieve things and being able to see, I guess, success is definitely something that drives me, but it's not always a good success. I think it's more like feeling like God would be proud of something that I achieved. So whether that's like I had a beautiful conversation with someone and actually felt like I was able to thoroughly listen to them and I was giving them my full attention, or it could be finishing up a worship set at church and feeling like I was able to just totally let go and give God everything in that present moment makes me feel like that was it, like that was what I was aiming for. There's definitely many times I think I'm definitely too hard on myself when I reflect on things, but one particular time where I was definitely unhappy with a result of something I put hard work into would probably be the first time that I led on Momentum Camp. I was leading worship, and I've grown up watching my brother and sister-in-law lead worship and older people that I really respect in the church lead worship, and I had like a goal of what I wanted it to look like. And I know I've definitely experienced God in the most beautiful ways when it's been in like a worship space that's just surrounded by joy and feeling like it's all put together, or at least that's what I thought it was at the time. So when I was leading worship, I had these massive expectations on myself that it had to be the perfect songs, just like Hillsong does it in their live versions, or just like I've seen all of these people I respect do it. And then I got up there and I felt like it was absolutely terrible. As much as I had definitely given my heart to God, and I was praying beforehand, and I was like, God, you're gonna speak to these youth kids through this space. It's gonna be like, I'm really hoping it's gonna be transformative for people that are there. But I came down and I was like, oh my gosh, I did terrible. That sounded terrible. It was not what I thought it was gonna be. I picked the wrong songs. It wasn't like a nice space for people at all, and I was totally beating myself up about it. And I guess that kind of drove me from then on to try and do better. But it wasn't until 3 years later that someone came up to me and mentioned that first Momentum Camp and said to me that that was the time where she had encountered God and she felt the presence of God. And I remember when she said that, I was thinking, we can't be thinking of the same camp. Like, I'm definitely thinking of a totally different time, because in my head I was like, that's terrible. Like, I did bad. There's no way that God was able to use that because it was bad. After that person shared that story with me, I just began to get so many different encounters with people who were starting to share times that they had actually felt touched by the Holy Spirit or blessed by a worship space that I had been part of, or a prayer, or just me giving them a hug at a certain period of time. And I feel like that was definitely God being intentional and trying to make a point to me that I was totally wrong in the way that I was defining success, and I was trying to define it as what I thought would be good, but God doesn't want what I want. He knows a lot better than that, and I think he was trying to definitely show me that he can use anything. I think that perspective shift has totally changed the way that I approach my own personal relationship with God. There's a verse in Romans that talks about while we're still sinners, he uses us and he loves us, right? And I knew that, and I'd been raised in a church being told that, but I, for some reason, had believed that I still needed to live up to being worthy of being used by God. And God totally stripped that away for me, and I was able to see that He doesn't actually want anything except my heart. And once I realized that, it just made me realize how critical it was that I was daily giving Him my heart, not just as like one of those altar calls you do at an awesome youth camp, or a book you read that changes you for a little while and then you fall back into old habits. I wanted to start fresh and start giving a portion of each of my morning to God to make sure that I was taking Him throughout my day, rather than just doing the Jesus things on a Sunday and doing the Jesus things when I'm doing my Bible reading and then going about my own life, because it's not my life, it's God's life, and I want to make sure that I'm walking alongside Him in everything I do. Uni still brings stresses, work still brings stresses. I still find myself getting overwhelmed by things, but I think the thing that's changed the most with that is my approach to feeling stressed and anxious and overwhelmed, rather than that having the control over me. Now knowing that God reigns sovereign over everything in my life, and actually not just knowing that, but believing that and having actually experienced that so deeply. Success is living totally freely because of God and nothing else, and totally abandoned to Him.